What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome to a big Nintendo Switch and RPG news video. We've got a bunch of awesome content to go over, so let's go ahead and jump right in with the Nintendo Switch and Japan. So this is something that not a lot of places are reporting on, but you know we're going to report on it here. And we're talking about the Nintendo Switch being very close to being the best-selling system of all time in Japan. This past week in the Famitsu sales, the Nintendo Switch crossed the 32 million mark in the Japanese sales boards. 32 million just in Japan alone. The Nintendo DS sits at the top with 32.9 million. So sometime within the first half of this year, maybe even a little bit into the second half, we should see the Nintendo Switch beat out the Nintendo DS and be the best-selling system of all time in Japan. Now, the craziest thing about this is that even if you adjust for inflation, because the Nintendo Switch has never gotten a price drop, the fact that the Switch was $350 to $200 compared to the Nintendo DS, I think being about $150 and below and got multiple price drops, that just goes to show you how impressive the sales are for the Nintendo Switch. Now, how are they going to achieve that and what's coming up to help push them past that mark? Well, you've got Mario vs. Donkey Kong, you got Princess Peach Showtime, you got Luigi's Mansion, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, another code just launched, and there's a few third-party games here and there that should help out. But I think overall, Nintendo's already moved on, or they're moving on to the next system. But the big difference here is that there is a huge base of people who still play and like the Nintendo Switch. So I do feel that Nintendo will support the system with new Virtual Console or NSO games, and maybe even a game or two here or there, more on the casual side of things. If there's a sequel to Nintendo Switch Sports, something like that. I definitely see it coming over to the Nintendo Switch in addition to the Nintendo Switch 2 in the future. And ultimately, the big question here is if the Nintendo Switch can actually outsell the PlayStation 2 to become the best-selling system of all time. We'll get Nintendo's financial numbers coming up pretty soon here in February. And then really, they just have to have just some decent years over the next 2 or 3 years. They don't need to sell 15, 20 million per year in order to reach it. They can just sell half of that or a quarter of that, right? And do that over a course of time with price drops and everything. And eventually, they'll probably get to where the PlayStation 2 is. But they have to get to Nintendo DS first, which is at about 150 million or so. So I do think that it's going to pass up both of those systems when it's all said and done. But speaking of the Nintendo Switch and what's coming up to help the sales, let's talk a little bit about the leaks for the Nintendo Direct, apparently happening next week. That's what some leakers are saying. Now, there's the normal people that are sitting there and saying, oh my gosh, Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Direct. I mean, we've got that since last year, saying that it's going to come at any point, right? Or just the assumption, because Nintendo has had a long history of multiple Februaries, early in the Februaries and sometimes mid-February, having a Nintendo Direct. I think with the only exception, like 1 year, it was like March or something like that. But for the most part, in all normal years, it's February. So we do have some leaks that are coming out. Now, there is one very credible leaker that I do want to talk about because he's gotten multiple things right. And I always struggle with his name a little bit. I think it's Bill Kun. And he posted a cryptic message on Twitter, or X if you like to call it that, and basically saying, hey, look, looks like we're going to be having a Nintendo Direct in February. I'm going to go over exactly what he had to say. He put the eyes emoji. Looking forward to an indie game of my favorite genre. My credit card will be charged in less than 15 days so I can play it directly without waiting. And yeah, it may be announced during one of those two upcoming events. So obviously, directly without waiting, Nintendo Direct. So yeah, so there's multiple different stuff that people are speculating about when it comes to the game. But they said indie game, so Hi-Fi Rush is not that. So I'm guessing it's Penny's Big Breakaway, but we'll see what he's actually talking about and if there's going to be a Direct. But yeah, Nintendo usually does Directs in February. I think the more interesting thing here is exactly what is the Direct going to be about, because we already know about all the different Mario stuff that's coming out, right? We got Mario vs. Donkey Kong, we got Princess Peach Showtime, we got Luigi's Mansion, we got Thousand Year Door. I mean, there's a lot of great Mario stuff coming out, And there really hasn't been much in terms of other types of games. We got another Code, but there really isn't anything after that. So I want to know what Nintendo has up their sleeves, because we all know that Nintendo is absolutely gearing up for the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. There's not much in terms of what's left. A lot of Nintendo's big first-party developers have pretty much moved on to the next system overall. So we're going to have to wait and see what Nintendo has in store for us when it comes to it. We could be surprised here. There could be a bunch of games that we just don't know about. Maybe there's some other things they want to talk about when it comes to other remasters. We can still talk about Legend of Zelda. That's been rumored for forever, right? When it comes to Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, when it comes to Wind Waker. We can also talk about Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3. Maybe they can even show us some footage of Metroid Prime 4. Doesn't mean that it won't be on the next system as well, or have some enhancements or a patch, but they could even just talk about it. But Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 are absolutely a possibility. There could be like another casual game as well. There could be something else that they're doing. So I don't expect a ton from this Nintendo Direct, just like I didn't expect a ton from the previous one, just because Nintendo is in that transition phase. But I do think that they'll probably have a little bit for us when it comes to what they want to do for 2024. Then of course get that out of the way, and then move into full Nintendo Switch 2 mode and get into what they're doing with that. Now there's also one more thing that I want to talk about with that. There are rumors that GameCube could be coming as well, because there were some patents that were found that showed off like an interface and things that you would store digitally for a NSO storefront or something like that. So there could be GameCube, and if Nintendo announces GameCube in like 5 or 6 games and they're awesome and people love that, and there's like Chibi Robo and there's like other stuff, I think people would be hyped, and that would be good enough for a lot of Nintendo fans out there that we actually get something when it comes to like GameCube, right, on the NSO. We've gotten all the old stuff, that's great, N64 and GBA and all that, but you know, GameCube's a bit more modern when it comes to how the games run and operate and everything. So I think that would be huge if they were able to get a few more remasters, ports out there, and GameCube, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what Nintendo ends up doing. Not really sure on this one. It could be next week, could be the week after, could be not at all, or it could just be later, or Nintendo could be planning something completely different. We just don't know at this point, but it's a safe bet to say that, yeah, they're probably going to have a Nintendo Direct in February at some point, and maybe it will be next week, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. All right, so moving on to the next topic. I don't know about you guys, but I get pretty antsy when there's not a Fire Emblem or Xenoblade game that I'm looking forward to playing, because there's been nothing announced. Now, we do have some rumors of a possible Fire Emblem 4 remake, which that could be in the Nintendo Direct situation that people are theorizing, that I've talked about as well. So there's that, but we all know that Monolith Soft is working on something incredible. We all know that Monolith Soft has their eyes on that next Nintendo Switch system, and that's exactly what's happening here, because they are gearing up and getting ready. They're already in it, but now they're even gearing up more and loading up for everything that's coming with the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, what I mean by that is that my boy Stealth over there has actually cited over on the Monolith Soft Tokyo area, they are hiring for a new 3D action game. Now, the requirements are experience developing 3D action games, experience developing games using game engines, and experience in large teams developing AAA games. So all of that kind of says Xenoblade, new IP, something that they're going to be bringing to the market, and obviously with that new system intact. Now, obviously with a bigger and badder system, when it comes down to it, you're going to need a bit more help. Now, Monolith Soft is one of the best, if not the best, mid-sized to bigger AAA team around at developing action RPGs. They've done an incredible job with Xenoblade Chronicles, with limited staff on that first one, be it that. And then, of course, Xenoblade Chronicles X, which is incredible. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which was a miracle that it even made it in 2017, considering the team size of about 40 people that worked on that game, or so, a little bit more with some outside help. And then, of course, the big one, which is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which was absolutely incredible, nominated for Game of the Year, huge title, about 2 million seller at this point as well. So Monolith Soft has set themselves up for progression each step of the way, and some people are wondering, will this be the system that they have their second breakout? Originally, it was Xenoblade Chronicles. Obviously, Monolith Soft has been around since the Xenogears days, right? All the way back then, and really it wasn't until Xenoblade where they really started getting their work noticed on a large multi-million scale. Now, will this be the next thing that they do on the Nintendo Switch 2 to truly break out and be a 3, 4, 5 million unit seller, get it in that Fire Emblem range, like how Fire Emblem 3 Houses broke out? And I think Yes, because I think that the technology and the team size is finally catching up to where they're going to be able to create the game that looks and runs and plays as good and as talented as they are. I think there's always been a deficiency in some areas, usually with Nintendo's hardware at times, and I think all the way up and through the Nintendo Switch, right? We have the Nintendo Wii, we have the DS that they worked on as well. The GameCube was a little bit different. Their team size in terms of budget and everything was off there, but they really haven't had everything lined up. And I truly feel with this next system and what they're doing with the power and scale of the Nintendo Switch 2 and how they're gearing up for something awesome with these new developers and with their team size just being way bigger than what it was, they're truly going to be able to create the game that looks and runs and plays just as good as they are. Everything combined. Now, Monolith Soft obviously makes up for it in many different areas. When it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles, the story is incredible. Heck, the technology and what they've done in terms of how they make their games, the open world titles on Nintendo hardware before, are really good for what they're working with, especially Xenoblade Chronicles 3 that does many things that even Xbox and PlayStation games don't do, with 7 characters all on screen attacking at the same time, seamless transitions into battle for a JRPG. That's not something that everyone can say that they've done, but I do think that this is finally it with this hardware and how they've got the experience now working on now the 3rd generation of HD hardware for Nintendo, starting with the Wii U, then we have the Nintendo Switch, now the Nintendo Switch 2. So I think everything comes together here and their games break out when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 in terms of sales, in terms of how it looks, and even a bit more when it comes to the popularity overall with the mainstream media. I think this might be the time. So we'll see how it all works out here for Monolith Soft, but yes, color me excited because I am getting ready. There has to be something that Monolith Soft is gearing up to show us. They always have something a bit early in a Nintendo system's life, with the exception of the Wii. But if you look at the Wii U, Xenoblade Chronicles X was shown off early. If you look at the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 shown off at the Nintendo presentation back in 2017 for the Switch. So I think that they want to awe and shock people with this, and this game is going to be that showpiece graphically for Nintendo. So I'm very excited for it. Now let's analyze what's going on here with the data mine with Hi-Fi Rush. Now, I alluded to this before with the game that could be coming, and it seems like Hi-Fi Rush might have been leaked again or something for the PlayStation systems and the Nintendo Switch, because there was an anniversary update that was data mined recently, and it shows a potential PS5 and Switch t-shirt design. So now we're data mining t-shirts at this point. So Gamatsu has wrote here that t-shirt designs revealed via a data mine of the recently released Hi-Fi Rush anniversary update could indicate that the 2023 released Tango Gameworks developed rhythm action game is coming to PS5 and the Switch. Now, in the folder containing the t-shirt designs unique to each platform the game is available on, 2 shirts that seem to reference PlayStation and Switch also appear. The alleged PlayStation shirt is blue and reads "I'm here, baby," while the Switch shirt is red and reads "Rock Out Anywhere." The specific blue and red colors are also near identical to the colors used for the PlayStation and Nintendo Switch branding. Now, for context, other platform exclusive shirts include the Xbox exclusive green shirt that reads "Shadow Dropped," referencing the game's same day announcement and release in February 2023. The Epic Games Store exclusive gray shirt that reads "This is simply crossed out Unreal and then Epic," referencing Epic Games and Unreal Engine, and the Steam exclusive dark gray shirt that reads "Be Positive, Overwhelmingly," referencing Steam's user review scale. These 3 t-shirts are already available in-game via the anniversary update. Now, the same anniversary update includes these data mine t-shirt designs, also added DualSense controller button icons and adaptive triggers toggle to the PC version, which can be configured in the settings menu. So people are talking about this. Obviously, this was like a big deal a bit ago. I covered it on my channel that Hi-Fi Rush could be coming over to the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation, or just the Nintendo Switch, or just the PlayStation. Some people said not the Switch at all. That was like one of the newer rumors, but okay, maybe it's back on with these data mine leaks. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I played Hi-Fi Rush for about 30 to 40 minutes before I turned it off. Not my cup of tea, but it might be some of you guys' cup of tea. I do like the art though. The art's pretty cool. The characters seem cool as well. So let's talk about something that I am really interested in with awesome and cool characters. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is a very interesting title because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, how is it exactly going to do in Japan? Now, and I know I'm going to be buying the game, and I know that people are excited and hyped for it here in the US and in Europe. It looks incredible from what they've shown. We've got a state of play that's going to be dedicated to it on February 6th. So there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I really loved Final Fantasy VII Remake. There was some parts about the game when it comes to pacing and some things, but overall the game was an incredible experience on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So let's talk a little bit about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and what's going on in Japan though. How are they feeling about it? Because we can go over the biggest retailer chain in Japan and see how the physical pre-orders are doing. And right now it's at 60 pre-orders at the Japanese retailer COMG. So that's very similar compared to Final Fantasy 16. Now, Final Fantasy 16, there was a lot of debate back and forth on this channel and on other places how well it was doing sales-wise in Japan. But here's the thing, guys. No matter what you think or what Square Enix has said, Final Fantasy 16 is one of the lowest Final Fantasy games ever when it comes to sales overall in that region. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is factual that it's one of the lowest sales ever. And I think for a mainline Final Fantasy, at least in the modern time period, it's absolutely the lowest. So that's something that we just know. That is factual, right? Now, if you look at it, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, shout outs to my man Pierre485 on Twitter. He's talked about the pre-orders when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth compared to Final Fantasy VII Remake. And it looks like it only has a fourth of the pre-orders in comparison. Now, you also have to factor in a couple different things here, right? If you look at it, the PlayStation 5 in terms of software sales, digital to physical ratio splits, they might be a bit higher in favor of the PlayStation 5 compared to the PlayStation 4. But you also have to look at it in terms of the popularity of the PlayStation 4 and the games that were being sold compared to the PlayStation 5. Despite what anybody will tell you, or despite what the sales numbers show when it comes to the PlayStation 5 in Japanese retail, games simply just aren't doing as well when it comes to the software sales. It's just not. We look at the sales every single week on the Famitsu, and it's just not there. The PS5 just isn't selling as much software as the PS4 did in Japan. Nintendo's eaten up a lot of that market. So I do think that that is probably part of it here. The PS4 just had a more active base of people who still purchase games. Even if you look at a game that came out recently, like a Dragon, the Infinite Wealth title, that still got 77,000 physical units sold on the PlayStation 4. Now, the PS5 had 100,000 units, but the PS4 still had a sizable chunk of that. So there's still a lot of people that are content with the PlayStation 4 in Japan and have been content for the 3+ years that the system has been out in that country. So I do think that's part of it, is the fact that it's not on the PlayStation 4 and PS5 just isn't selling as much software overall when it comes to in Japan compared to what the PS4 did. I also think a little bit of like the hype or the mystique of, oh my gosh, it's back, maybe wore out a little bit, or some people necessarily did not like Final Fantasy VII Remake and what they did with the combat in the game compared to the original in Japan and decided to opt out for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll see how the digital ratio of sales are. We'll see how it compares overall to Final Fantasy 16, because the PlayStation 5 is increasing in sales in Japan. However, it's a little bit weird because we don't know how much of those are actually being scalped out to other regions and other areas compared to who's actually buying those and playing the games in Japan. So we'll have to wait and see overall for all of it. What do you guys think about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? I know it's a day one buy for me. I'm very excited to check out the game. I'm pretty sure Square Enix will get me a review copy, but I'm going to buy a physical copy as well just because I want to have that in my hands. So I'm very excited. But speaking about another game that I'm very excited about and want to have in my hands, let's talk about Stellar Blade for the last topic here. Stellar Blade is a very interesting game made by Shift Up, a Korean developer. Sony has shifted over to this one to publish it and make it a PlayStation 5 exclusive. We've got the release date for the game. It is April 26th. It's a action RPG adventure type of game, and it looks really good. It's got fan service in there. I already know people are going to say that. So yes, there's fan service in there, and that's completely fine. I have no issue with it. But the game itself, what I'm actually interested in, is really looking solid. Now, they didn't show a ton of the gameplay because I was a bit critical of this game and what they showed. It looked a little bit jank, and I heard some information that that's the reason why the game missed its 2023 release date, because Sony wanted decided to really invest some resources and some time. And I think that I was correct with that, because if you go back to the state of play, the lead producer or one of the people from the development team actually thanked Sony for that, and that they really helped out. So that's exactly what Sony did. Sony saw the game, they saw potential, it's supposed to come to everything, PC and Xbox and everything. They said, hey, we could make this better, and they came in there, they made it an exclusive, and they got their people working on it as well to really tune up the game and make it better. And from what they've shown here, it looks like it's going to be a really cool game that encompasses a lot of different aspects. You're going to have your side quests, you're going to have your adventure bits, you're going to have different people to talk to, you're going to have different huge locations to go to, a lot of enemy variety. The gameplay in terms of the combat looks more visceral, looks sharper, looks better. The animations don't look as jank. There's just so much things that they tuned up and got much better. Now, it doesn't quite, to me, look as refined as a Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't necessarily have to, because it does some other things in terms of what it's trying to do from a world aspect and gameplay wise. So I'm excited for the game, looking forward to it. Not necessarily a fan of the box art, but she is upside down on there. So for all of you upside down fans, there you go. Although, you know, Fire Emblem Three Houses, you know, Claude was upside down, but then they had two people that were not upside down. It's just her upside down in space, which is kind of cool, I guess, right? So what do you guys think about everything that we talked about here? That's going to wrap it up for the big Nintendo Switch and RPG news. If you enjoy content like this, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more right here on PlayerEssence. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.